Hello and welcome to 10 more characters that need a resurrection. Before I get started, this is part 2 of the series. Part 1 is linked in the description below, and if a character that you think needs a resurrection isn't on this list, they might be on the other one. And if they're not on either, then they might be in a future list. Also, this list is in no particular order. Sure, some characters do need a resurrection more than others, but because there's so many of them, I figured it's just best to keep the order part out of this. With that said, let's begin.
いつまでそこで見とんねん、宗介。さすがです。
Starting things off, we have Hirako Shinji, more specifically, the Power Captain one, who came out in the same banner as OG Mind Kisuke and OG Kensei. I wanted to put him on here just because he's kind of a forgettable character. In fact, I'm sure some of you watching this right now completely forgot he even existed, and I don't blame you, he's got some pretty terrible stats. Granted, his SP is kind of average, at least in terms of OG characters, but he's only really got a Berserker at 20% to show for it, which is definitely not that much. He's also got a strong attack recharge link, but when your strong attacks don't do that much damage, it almost doesn't even make a difference. Not to mention that the strong attacks don't have that good a range for how little damage they do, and when you're stuck using your normal attack, you're stuck with a pretty crappy one of those too, since he only has a 615 attack and absolutely no bruiser. And while this character does suck, he's actually a very easy fix, since really all you have to do is increase the Berserker or give him Frenzy, and give him some sort of bruiser. He's already got a decent link and a decent killer, so increasing the damage is really all this guy needs, and maybe a little bit of range on a normal attack.
いきますよ。波動の31。はじけ着火砲。
Next up is Tag Team Momo, and I wanted to include her on the list because if they do this character correctly, and by that I mean give her Frenzy, then she will have one of the strongest strong attacks in the whole game. That is because her strong attack 3 has a 240% mag, and that's without even having to charge it. Now it doesn't have the best range, but it's range enough to deal a massive amount of damage to a good chunk of characters if they're close enough. Her strong attack 2 is also a vortex move, which will definitely benefit if she's given Frenzy, since double the hits means double the chance of inflicting burn. And even if this character does not get Frenzy, a boost in stats and abilities will definitely help, since her Berserker is only at 15 and her Bruiser is only at 10. I don't expect them to do much with the range of the attacks, but any increase in damage would make this character usable once again, thanks to her double killer, which especially in the time of Senkaimon is becoming ever more valuable.
袖の白雪。はい。次の舞。白蓮。
Up next is another tag team character, but this time it's Tag Team Rukia, who does have slightly better stats than Momo, but only has a plus 10 bruiser and a plus 10 berserker, which is definitely not good. She does have a normal attack damage link, but that's not nearly enough, especially when this character actually has a decent normal attack. It's got decent speed and decent range. Not to mention that, along with the rest of her attacks, also has a chance to inflict freezing. Unfortunately though, it's not debilitating freezing, which is actually something they can add if they resurrect this character. In fact, if the stats increase the way they've been increasing, it would actually be a really great character. With both the attack and SP at around 700, a double killer, and a vortex move strong attack 2, she could easily become usable again. Now unfortunately, her strong attacks and her special don't have the best range, but her special does have bombardment. If they keep that, then at least it would make up for some of the range. But I really do believe she could be one of the better hybrid characters if they just fixed her abilities. I really hope Caleb watches these and takes notes.
ようこそ。逆さまの世界へ。
Next up is the second Shinji on this list, but the first Shinji ever to become a 6-star. In fact, he was one of the very first 6-stars, along with Gin and Soifon. And with him being one of the first 6-stars, you can bet he has a bunch of problems. The first of which is his link. Dodge rate isn't exactly popular among the community. In fact, it's been forever since we've had a new character with dodge rate, so giving him a secondary link that would actually be good would be a step in the right direction. Next, you have this character's stats. While there are some OG characters with worse stats than this one, he does only have a plus 10 bruiser and a plus 15 berserker, so I definitely think those should be increased. In fact, because this character can inflict debilitating confusion on everything, I do think he should also have Frenzy, since you would be getting a little bit more damage, and it would double the probability of inflicting the confusion, and pretty much almost guarantee it for his strong attack 3 since it's a vortex move. Speaking of which, while it may be one of the most long-lasting, if not the most long-lasting vortex in the game, it does have a 32-second cooldown, which is just ridiculous. So giving him anything to lower that would definitely be a big help, or even if they just manually lower the cooldown time. Either way, I do think it'd be really neat to see one of the first 6 stars in the whole game have a resurrection. After all, they were kinda guinea pigs for the whole 6-star thing, so it'd be nice to see them with abilities that were actually thought out.
命をもらっておくとしようか。影鬼。
Next up is my favorite captain, Shunsui, who's kind of on this list because he's my favorite, not because he absolutely needs a resurrection. That said, he would definitely benefit from one, since while he does have a boosted normal attack damage link, he only has a 15% bruiser, which is definitely not that much, especially when you consider in the fact that his killer is an Espada killer, so he doesn't even get that boost unless he's fighting an Espada. And while his SP is low, he does only have a 10% berserker, so boosting that would also be pretty good. But the reason I really wanted to put him on this list is because we are getting Espada remakes really soon, and I'm fairly confident 1 or 2 of those will end up being PvP characters, especially since so many PvP characters right now have a captain killers, so it's gonna be nice to throw them for a loop. When that happens, getting a resurrected Shunsui with, let's say, an increase in bruiser and poise may not be a bad idea. And yeah, I know getting this character for PvP is kind of a long shot. Still, it'd be nice to be able to use him in regular stuff again. Next up, we have the Bankai version of Ikkaku, a character that desperately needs a remake, and I'm talking about very specifically the Bankai one, because I know we just recently got a tag team one. Now at first glance, you may realize that his attack is actually decent, at least for an older character. However, this character has a plus 40 berserker and a plus 20 strong attack damage link, meaning that his strong attacks actually deal more damage, and it's the better way to go for this character. And that's exactly what KLab needs to fix. You can't really have a moderately decent attack stat and have it be completely useless to you. In fact, if you actually look at all these characters' abilities, they have something to do with SP. He has Bombardment, as well as Weaken Defense for his special, and he's got Havoc at 30 and Berserker at 40. It's just a real shame that his SP is so low. At least if he's resurrected, it would go all the way up to around 640, which is absolutely fine, but it would also bring his attack stat to around 700, and they have to give him Bruiser or something. At this point, we know a lot of the upcoming characters are going to be Espadas or the book characters, or maybe even remakes of Captains or Vizards. I don't foresee them remaking this character anytime soon, so the best we can hope for now is a good resurrected one.
ここからが本番だ。応援龍が
Next up, we have the filler captain, Shusuke, who's actually one of few characters on this list who didn't get shafted on abilities. He has long reach, he has Bruiser at 25, Berserker at 30, and Debilitator. Now we do see Bruiser and Berserker at much higher percentages these days, but for being an original character, this really isn't all that bad. Not to mention that he's got decent range on his strong attacks, and a Soul Reaper killer, which is actually really good. But unfortunately, he really got shafted when it comes to his Soul trait and his stats, as his Soul trait is a dodge rate, and neither his attack or SP stat are over 600. Now obviously he's gonna get a second Soul trait, we just have to hope that it's good. And if it is, then having dodge rate's not gonna be that bad since it's just gonna be a bonus. His stats on the other hand really need some work. In fact, even increasing them by the amount they've been increasing may not be enough, and it would actually be a good idea to give this character Frenzy. Either way, I'm really hoping they make him usable again because he was one of my very first 6 stars, and I would love to be able to actually use him in an event.
千景千本桜影吉
Now if you've seen my other videos, you will know that I think that Byakuya has been shafted in every turn, as KLab often uses him as a guinea pig for any new mechanic. And this Byakuya here is a perfect example, as he was the very first character with the Vortex move. Not only that, but he's also one of very few characters with the ability Black Hole, which increases the Vortex damage by 40%, which is actually pretty good since it's a long duration Vortex. This Byakuya also has a Bruiser at 20 and Berserker at 20, which is not that much. And while this is a combined 60% on the Vortex move, it's just on the Vortex move. But I'm really excited to see what they can do with this Byakuya. since he actually has decent range on his strong attacks and a 150% mag strong attack 3. Unfortunately, much like Amagai, he got shafted in terms of stats, since neither his attack or SP are over 600. Now obviously that's an easy fix, and he would end up as a hybrid character, which is not bad. Many hybrid characters are actually really fun to take on missions and still usable, but they would have to do something about his 6-star abilities, since the 20 Bruiser and Berserker is just not enough. With that said, he already has a good Link and a decent killer. I can't imagine we'll have to wait too much longer for this one either, since he came out relatively early and we're getting close to that time.
圧倒的な力で叩き潰すカスケーダ
Now in this game there's a variety of problems with OG characters. Some of them lack stats, some of them lack multipliers on their 6-star abilities, and some of them lack range. And unfortunately there's some that lack all three. Unfortunately, Halibel falls in that last category. Sure, she has Frenzy, which is actually really good, but her SP isn't all that high. Her attack is a little bit better, but the only multiplier she has on that is the normal attack damage link, which is at least better than nothing. Her biggest issue though is the lack of range. She does have long reach and she does have havoc, but long reach is only at 15% and havoc is at a measly 10. Don't get me wrong, there are other characters with worse range, but at least some of them have a better killer than a captain killer, and there's really not much you can do with this character. Killer really seems to like Halibel, so I'm not really all that worried. Though I do think it'll be quite a while till we see this character resurrected at the rate it's going.
とどめと行くぜ行くぜスターク
And at number 1, we have Espada number 1, and one of my favorite characters in the entire game to use, despite him being not that great, which is unfortunate because he was once the best character in the game, for a very short time. Now I'm extremely excited to see what Caleb's gonna do with this character, especially because he really needs the help. His stats aren't all that great, and he's got a captain killer, which definitely doesn't help. His Bruiser and Berserker is at 20 and 30 respectively, which could be worse, but also could be a lot better, especially since this character has very bad magnifications on his strong attacks and his normal attack. I'm serious, the only one that's normal is his strong attack 1 at 120 mag. Everything else is just all over the place. I would actually not be surprised if they gave this character both Flurry and Frenzy, since giving him that actually wouldn't make him broken, and it would definitely make him more fun to play. Now unfortunately it'll still be a little bit till we see him, since he came out at the same time as Halibel, which was just under a year into the game's release. But at this point it seems like Caleb's starting to pick up on how to really do these resurrection characters, and I really hope that by the time they get to him they perfect it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for some more top 10 lists.